Yep.
Yay. Welcome everyone to our Outreach and Network Guild meeting um, on Wednesday morning. It's great to see you all here. Interesting experiment, changing the time. Um, we haven't had a meeting in a while. I couldn't remember when the last one was, so I'm really glad that we are able to meet today. Um, yeah, so we can go ahead and get started with grounding and land acknowledgement. Is there anyone who would like to lead one?
I actually haven't done one in a while.
Okay,
So,
great.
um, yes, especially we start by acknowledging the land because the land is what holds us all up. Everything that we need, everything that we are comes from the land and returns to the land. And the by acknowledging that, we acknowledge that we are part of a much larger and more complex system. And so we start the meeting that way as a reminder that we are all connected. We are all in this together. And when I say we, I mean from the little creepy crawlies in the soil to the two-legged ones and the four-legged ones and the ones that fly and the ones that crawl and the ones that fly and the ones that swim and the ones that stand there with their roots in the ground. And in bringing the land to the center and acknowledging our relations, it naturally inspires both a debt of gratitude to the people who have cared for this land and cared for this wisdom for time immemorial, and acknowledging our gratitude at being able to rediscover that connection. And it comes also with a sense of obligation to do the right thing. And because we are all in relations with each other, it only makes sense to be in right relation, if at all possible. And that is not a passive thing. That involves restoring relations that have been harmed and establishing balance. And so with that, I acknowledge in particular the Wisanic, who are the caretakers of the land that I am currently on, and all Indigenous peoples who have kept the knowledge alive for us and are willing to share it with us. And actually, I think just to kind of ground it all, if we could all just take a couple deep breaths, find a comfortable position where you're sitting, let yourself relax into the support of the seat, and take a deep breath in, breathing in your connection to all your relations. And on the exhale, just let go of anything that no longer serves you. Any tiredness, any darkness, any heaviness, anything that no longer serves, just let it go. And when you breathe in fresh, cool, regenerated energy. And when you're ready, come back and join us in the circle by stretching a little bit. Whoops. And wiggling your toes. And back to you, Ronnie.
Thank you. I feel much more here than I did before. Um, yeah, so I'll start us off with a check-in question, and the circle as I see it is Ben, Heather, Roland, Janine, and me. Ben, Heather, Janine. And the question is, what is something that you've noticed in the natural world in the last day or two that caught your eye? Over to you, Ben.
Ah, interesting sunset last night with the chickens. So yeah, and I was grumpy that I had to wait a little bit for them to go in, but then I turned around and there was this really pretty sunset. So I was like, oh, okay. Over to Heather.
You're
Oh, you're
muted,
muted.
Heather.
I'm noticing right now I have a beautiful view through the trees of the sun coming in. And right as I look through the trees, I see the fun field. This is an area on our farm that we are choosing not to cultivate, but it is the area, actually, we have a labyrinth that is where what I'm calling where the wild things live. Because we created the labyrinth and then both Susan and I, who were weeding it, were seeing ourselves as settlers that came to kind of make our impact on it. And we stopped weeding and decided we would just have a little trail through it and that we call the place where the wild things live. So I get up in the morning and I remember that. And over to who's next?
Me.
You are Roland. Over to Roland.
Um, uh, there's a little blue flower, I think it's blue flower that I've seen a little bit everywhere since being on Pender, and no one has been able to identify it. And then I sent it to the Pender forum, and then suddenly everyone was like, "Oh, this is what it is," and "Oh, is that what it is?" And it's a kind of centaurium, and that's what I've noticed. Over to Janine.
In the moment, I really appreciate the evening atmosphere in my garden. We live like next to an oat field, and when the sun sets, it's just like beautiful colors and like beautiful forms. I really like that. And the sound of the crickets, there are a lot of crickets living in the field. Over to Ronnie.
I feel like I've been transported by everyone's shares. Um, Up against our fence, we have two trellises, and there's this very robust creeping vine that goes up the trellises and down, and we've had a lot of rain, and it's slowly covering the whole bed, which is mostly empty. So it's this beautiful viney ground cover, and it some of the tendrils are going onto the concrete sidewalk. And our oldest cat, who's 15, was lying out in the sun this morning across the vines. So he had vines just under his body and around him, and his little paws were like this. And I took a picture because it was just so beautiful. So yeah, that's what I noticed. All right, so I will share my screen and we can get into our agenda for today, which is very much what we will create together. Can everyone see Asana on my screen? Awesome. So we wrapped up 6 conversations about lifeboats, and we have started weaving that into our fall planning, which we did. We started at our last coordination circle. And so in terms of today's agenda, I added a couple things we could talk about that sort of came out of that circle. We just sent out a poll for navigation session times. So far, a couple of people, Ben and me, have filled it out. And so I thought we could potentially discuss sending out some reminders for that. Um, I linked to the coordination circle notes from last week's meeting because there was a really generative discussion that I feel like we could pull some things out of that relate to outreach in terms of publicizing things for the fall semester, letting people know what's going on, different social media posts we could start creating and continue to create. And then that kind of ties into um, the stuff below it, which has been ongoing on the agenda. So how are we managing social media? How does this guild in particular publicize events for all the guilds and for the academy at large? How is everything sort of fitting together? So that is sort of the agenda that I propose, and we can go around the circle and just let us know if there's anything you want to add, if there's any comments or concerns or considerations that you'd like to share. Over to you, Ben.
Sorry with the screen share the way it is, I couldn't find my unmute button. That all sounds really good. I feel like, or I was thinking that hanging a lot of what we're talking about on the fall schedule makes a lot of sense. Sort of thinking about basically as I think there's kind of a rough shape of the fall already. You know, we kind of know the kinds of things that are going to be happening. And so coordinating what kind of outreach you want to do. In part, there's a lot of stuff that is turn the crank. You know, like we're going to send out newsletters and they're going to advertise, you know, all the different events. And we're going to do social media posts. You know, what do we already know we're doing them. Where do they go? Yeah, I think the only thing in that spirit, it's also, I think, making sure we're clear on who we're reaching out to and why, because doing, I think in particular, doing the diagram for the finance and legal guild, one of the things that became really clear for me is we have these very distinct audiences. And so, you know, sort of understanding who the audiences are and what what parts of this they're interested in and how do we have a conversation with all of them. So that's the only thing I would think I would add in. And I pass over to Heather.
Yeah, I don't think I have anything to add. I haven't been at many of these meetings. I'm primarily on the finance guild. Yeah, so I'm here to listen and participate where it's appropriate. And over to Roland.
A couple of things. One of them is no, actually, well, I don't know how long I'm going to be here. You know, Wednesdays is the one day of the week that is the worst day for me. So I can be here for the first half hour. So the one thing that I'd like to tack on to the invitation to the navigations is I wasn't sure if pre-Lifeboat Academy participants to the navigation sessions were added to the list of people invited.
They were.
So they were? Okay. The other one is that I want to participate in the meeting, and we had talked about the recorded meetings being a way for people to be able to participate. And I'm not sure what that looks like when the meeting occurs and there are decisions that are made, and if I have any questions or if I have anything that I want to bring up, how to do that. So that's the other thing that I wanted to add to that. And with that, I will pass to Janine.
I have nothing to add so far.
Is it okay if I jump in? Because I just want to answer Roland's question because we have a process. And so unless there's any problem with how we've set it up, the answer is we never consider any decisions made in a meeting as the final decision. They're always proposals. That's the reason why we put it on the video and we make people aware of the notes and the decisions, because then anyone has the opportunity to object or to open up the conversation again if there's something missing. So, and we had said 48 hours from the time that people get a notice of what happened at the meeting. So the way that you can participate, even if you aren't at the meetings, is that you watch the meeting, and if there's anything that was missed, then you raise it as either a concern or an objection, and the decision hasn't been made yet technically. And after 48 hours, we assume that no one had any objections. since it was one of those ideas that we came up with to balance, you know, not ever having everyone in the room at the same time, but also needing things to move forward. So, you know, how that's how we can make a decision and allow other people the opportunity to get involved if they want to. Anyhow, so that's just the process as it's set up. Back to you, Ronnie.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up because I totally forgot that that was even a thing, and I'm glad to know about it. So yeah, very useful. Lean into the process. So that also
We
makes me
probably
think
have that written down somewhere.
yeah. It might be good to also talk about, do we want this to be the new guild meeting time, or do we want it to be a different time? Also, in terms of our fall planning in general, it might be actually at the next coordination circle meeting, which is less than a week away. We look at the guild meeting schedule and think through, is there anything we need to change? A morning time is easier for me because in the afternoon after work my brain is fried, but you know there's always considerations. So I think, yeah, I think rather than talking about it in this meeting, we could talk about it at the coordination circle if people are okay with that, or any objections.
I've got a friendly amendment. I think we can do a quick chat around, you know, just sort of, is there a time that works among the five of us at least? If we can just, because if we're going to keep it open to Europe, it's only in the morning. Like that's, you know, from 8 to 10 is sort of the only time where there's overlap, which does mean that we can never have Andy and Janine in the same room at the same time. But this is, you know, working globally. These are the challenges we face.
Yeah. Yeah, so all right, so let's go around once, hopefully once, and see, does this time work for you? If not, or are there other times that would be better that you might propose? Over to you, Ben.
You know, the morning works for me, and I'm wondering if there's just a different morning. So yeah, I can work with this, you know, early morning meeting slot, and I'm also flexible of it moving days of the week, not Sunday. Over to Heather.
Yeah, 8 o'clock in the morning, any day of the week is perfect for me. Not that I wouldn't be, if I can remember when the meeting is, or if I've recorded it accurately, I'm flexible, but I really like the early morning meeting. And over to Roland.
Yeah, Wednesdays are generally not good. I can do Tuesday, but I'd like to avoid it. And Thursday and Friday in the morning is wide open for me, and Saturday too, actually, come to think of it. So over to Janine.
Yes, so weekdays would be perfect for me. Weekend is usually a little bit difficult, but I could move, like, I could be available from 8 to 12 a.m. Canadian time. So if you want to move in the morning, I would be flexible. Over to Ronnie.
So I can do Wednesdays. The only other morning I have free is Fridays, but I would have a hard stop time like right before the hour. So I would be limited because I have a standing appointment. It might be possible for me to move that standing appointment. I don't, I have to find out. But if I could, I think Friday morning would be great. There's also April isn't here, and April often is at outreach. Wait, is April often at outreach meetings? No, she's not. Okay, never mind. But yeah, I can find out about the Friday time and report back. So I think that was a good amount of information, and we'll see how it goes. Awesome. So I think Ben's suggestion about looking at things in terms of the fall semester and the schedule is really smart. We already sort of touched on the navigation session poll went out. I can send out a reminder. What's today, Wednesday? I could send out a reminder tomorrow and then another one early next week. I'm going to write that down. um, And is there anything else we want to talk about right now in terms of the navigation sessions? Over to you, Ben.
Just a little update as I forward it to the CJ group, the Community Justice Group. So, and I forwarded it and said, share around. And I guess that's also to, in the reminders, I don't know if we want to encourage people to share, it's, make it clear it's kind of an open invitation, invite a friend. Over to Heather. You're muted.
God, I think I'll pass. I don't have anything to add. And yeah, over to Roland.
Yep, that I don't think I have anything to add at this moment either. Over to Janine.
Yeah, I've got just a personal thing. Can you add me to that email newsletter? Yeah, perfect. Yeah, that's all. Over to Ronnie.
I'm sorry, Janine, did you mean the email for the navigation sessions or the
No,
newsletter?
the
Or both?
newsletter, I think.
Okay.
I'm not sure what are the differences exactly, but I think the newsletter is more the general one, right?
Yes. So the navigations email is we're asking people to let us know about their schedule so we know when people are available for the sessions.
Yes, I think newsletter is good. Perfect.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, great. Awesome. So speaking of the newsletter, we haven't had a newsletter. I haven't sent one out in a while because we're in planning mode. But that is something that once we have the schedule somewhat finalized, I would want to send that out ASAP. And also basically just publish what's in the newsletter on the website. So under the events page, listing out our fall schedule and all of the links and everything. So, but for now, we don't know what the schedule is yet. We're still figuring out what's what. So I propose that we talk about, I think, who we're reaching out to and why. I think talking through our audiences could be a really good guide for what kinds of posts we want to be putting out and what kinds of events and who's invited to those events and how are we as well as like what is the sort of the rhythm of posting through the next couple of months. Ben, do you want to start us off?
Yeah, and I think so that I don't hog the floor, I'm going to propose that we do sort of one audience at a time. And then, we can build the list together. And so I'll start with, I think, the obvious one, which is the Lifeboat mentors. And I think differentiating, when we talk about the Connect the Dots Club, we've been saying that this first fall session is for faculty and grad students to lean into the academy metaphor. And so the mentors are the people who already have some experience in community organizing, resilience building, and so why would they want to come together with other people? And I think that's what's in it for mentors. And I think what's in it for mentors is the peer-to-peer support and kind of the mutual aid side of things. But yeah, I think it's also keeping them distinct from, sort of the undergraduates. And so that's one group that's on my mind, and I'll pass over to Heather for adding others.
Yeah, well, what's on my mind is that Lifeboat is a member of Foodlands, and I'm coming from Foodlands to Lifeboat. And in terms of outreach, Foodlands is having a strategic planning process happening on the 14th and 15th at Abundance Farm. One of the things that we will be addressing is how we I'm going to say rollout, that's not the right word, but I mean, we're governing by sociocracy, so we're wanting to be really clear who the circles are, and in Foodlands is responsible for reaching out. So I'd like to firm up maybe or clarify, like, what is the reciprocal relationship between Lifeboat and Foodlands, and who do we communicate with? We have, of course, a newsletter and all the similar things that Lifeboat has, so that it's somewhat parallel. And part of me being here is the learning that I'm taking back, because, Lifeboat is very much more practiced in terms of sociocracy. So we have, for those of you who don't know, we have in Foodlands our membership is based on community farms and cooperative farms and allies to that. So there's a lot of alignment already, and just to be kind of crisp about that would be really good. And over to Roland.
I think I'm sort of dovetailing on that. I was just noticing how we are all, except for me and Ben, we are all representing different parts on the planet and different communities. So actually reaching out to each of our local communities in whichever way makes sense. Over to Janine, and I think I will be exiting soon. So have a good week, and I will look at the video.
Thanks, Roland.
Thank you. Well, I'm thinking about sort of, I don't know, like partner networks. I don't know if you would consider like the community justice group as a sort of partner network, which are not really participating in the project, but like sort of sharing the events that you have, and like that you are connected by points, local or global partners. Yeah. Sorry, over to Ronnie.
Yeah, I think that's sort of similar to member organizations. We haven't ever really decided what we want to call them, which is fine. I don't think, we don't have to have one word, but I think that's really good. And community justice and Foodlands do very different things, and yet there is still overlap too with, how do we work together? So yeah, I just really like this conversation. It's really interesting. Yeah, I'm thinking about the lifeboat builders, sort of the undergrads who are the people we've talked that we've identified as they're climate alarmed and collapse aware, haven't really gotten started yet, aren't necessarily maybe involved in some kind of organizing things, but haven't thought about it in these ways and in this depth before. And I think it is a really, really important distinction that we're making, because we have sort of been marketing to everybody. It's like, you could be a mentor, or you haven't even started yet. And it's kind of muddled. And I think if we can be like, for mentors, this is about leadership. these are leaders. This is leadership training. Because for some people, that's going to be the language that they understand. And then for other people who maybe they don't want to be a leader, they just want to be able to know that they're going to have food to eat. So it's like, okay, we can, there's some more like introductory stuff that we can do. So yeah, I'm thinking about identifying what what are the introductory offerings, and how do we know when somebody has gone through enough of those and is clearly up to, they're willing and have the capacity to be a mentor? What does that look like? And I also feel like we have that written down, like that already exists. So it's a matter of kind of doing some reflection to bring ourselves back to what the process is. Yeah, over to you, Ben.
Well, and I'm going to take us in a very different direction, but I think, in order to connect dots, because the other people that we want to talk to are the social impact investors. And I'm thinking, I've started to try to think more broadly about people like Bernie or Brad Smith and the group that he represents, so that impact investors aren't simply, in a way, actually, we could think of Stephanie as a social impact investor, who are people who have property and want to invite other people into that project. But they're investing with property. And again, thinking what's in it for them, and why might they want to. Well, and again, I think it's mutual aid. It's sort of thinking about what I think actually one of the things, this is my flight of fancy. This is what I think is potential here. I know one of the common complaints of people who are trying to start these projects is that they can't find partners. They can't find people who are willing to sign up and commit, and they feel like they're presenting this incredible opportunity and no one's taking them up on it. So how can we be a broker in that, since we're connecting with the lifeboat builders, the people who are sort of looking for something, and also the people that have the resources or can make the resources available in one way or another. And ideally, I just keep thinking of these kind of entrepreneurial shows like Dragon's Den, and people come in and they do their pitch, and then they get support to actually, and when an investor takes on a project in an entrepreneurial space, usually there's support services that go with that because they want them to be successful. And I think we have the potential of being that support service. If we're working with the people who have the material resources, financial or land, who are willing to make that available, and we can kind of vet that, the people that we're going to send your way, they know about sociocracy, they know about collaboration, they know about using experimental method. They're not ideological, like they can work with other people. Or they contain their ideology, like it's whatever the right term is for that. But anyhow, that's, I think, in a way, it's a very different, it's sort of opposite to the other people that we're talking about, other groups we're talking about, but also very connected. So over to you, Heather.
Yeah. Wow. That kind of rings true for me, in terms of how many people in our network are kind of needing to reach out, needing resources in different ways. And I wanted to add, and this might be not directly related, but what's on my mind is that we have a small grant to do kind of succession, and we have identified my grandson, Gerhard, to kind of be mentored into some of these roles, which means me kind of shadowing me in a way. And so I'd really love to introduce him to Lifeboat. He's pretty brilliant, and I think he'd just, really, really benefit from being connected. So that, and I say that because I'm wanting to transition myself into kind of a more in a less pivotal role. I'm considered to be a guiding elder, and that does mean that if anything is important that I'm doing, somebody else needs to take it up and do it. Like in the words of a Greg Brown, who's one of my favorite folk singers, I've got a great big past and a little bitty future. and the future needs to kind of involve other people. So I think it's relevant in that I want to bring other people with me. And over to, not Roland is not here, over to Janine, I think.
Yes, thank you. I have nothing to add in the moment. Over to Ron.
Heather, you sound like a perfect lifeboat mentor. We're at a Lifeboat Academy. We're here to help you help other people.
I sometimes think of myself as a minstrel going from castle to castle, and either it's a dirge or else it's a ballad,
Yeah.
depending upon what's needed or what people are asking for. Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like this is all kind of connecting in a really cool way. Ben, I love what you were talking about. And as you were talking, I was thinking about the IC match, the intentional community match. And what it really doesn't address is really people's readiness to be in community, people's knowledge of how to collaborate, how to create equitable, inclusive environments. And I think Lifeboat Academy is all about that. We're all about the actual tangible skills, and we're about communities talking to each other. So instead of you go over here and you go over there, it's how can all of these landholders learn from each other, learn from us, and know that what you're saying, Ben, that the people who are coming their way are equipped not just with hands-on practical skills, but also can communicate, can actually cohabitate in a productive way. And I think there could be a way that we sort of package things, like, you're a farmer, you are a carpenter, you are blah, blah, blah. And come to these sessions to learn how to facilitate a group, to communicate better with your other people around you. There's different ways that we could reach these different audiences, and it's not necessarily offering completely different things to different people, but it's how we talk about it. And I think this is a tension that has come up cyclically in the work is how do we talk about it. The other thought I had about the social impact investors / people like Bernie who have land, and Bernie already uses not sociocracy. Does he use sociocracy? The other thing, the thing that's like so pro-social. I think Bernie uses pro-social. Anyway, people who have land, who are trying to do a project, we could also equip them with skills for collaboration that they can use to work with people who come to them, and potentially as a way of marketing themselves too. Be like, come to this farm and learn how to collaborate, just like the Lifeboat Academy does. So anyway, I feel like I'm kind of getting into the weeds a bit, but yeah, that's all I have for now. Back to you, Ben.
You
I'm
just
sorry, I
muted
accidentally
me.
muted you instead of myself.
I was like, anyhow, I won't take that personally. So um I was thinking, and sort of, I think, there's something I'm thinking a little bit about. It's almost like having tags where, as we're talking, I'm jumping back up to the fall schedule and the communication schedule that goes with it. And, having the newsletter that sort of talks to the different audiences, but then having, some subset of them that are, specific to, it's almost um, like a key system where, yeah, I guess I think I'm distracting myself now, but I was just thinking in terms of another kind of similar group. I'm going to give myself a moment to let the thoughts line up. I have two different thoughts. I think they're connected, but I'm not entirely sure. So I'm just going to start and see whether or not they end up together. One is that another group who I put as near neighbors to sort of the partners, partners and membership groups, are other people who are doing something similar to what we're doing. So like, there's this guy who Richard Flyer, who does symbiotic culture. And it's very much what we're talking about. It's, sort of a decolonized way of working that is more iterative. And he's got different language that he uses around it and a different way of sort of pitching it. And I've seen a number of other people that are like that. They're sort of like really near neighbors, and they just use slightly different language or are focused in, one particular aspect of it. And I was thinking, well, how do we bring them together, like with us? And why, how, rather than letting it feel like some sort of competition, like their model or our model. And I was thinking that goes back to that kind of experimental method part of that we are agnostic on any of these, and we are trying to implement them in a practical way in all of these projects. And that can be part of the learning is, and bringing people together and saying, okay, well, so you're not using sociocracy. How is that going? You're using a different system. What do you like about it? What don't you like about it? Have you used both? And then, being able, so like that kind of knowledge. So it made me think about what Heather was saying in terms of like, if we're doing something that's important, we need to pass it on. And that's the Lifeboat Academy, is that skill exchange, right? Where people are offering in, this is something I can do, I can offer. And other people are saying, oh, that's something I'd like to learn. And we're setting up these sort of mentorship relationships, but it's skill-based. So it's not ideological. It's not about my process, trademark. It's about, here's a skill that I think is important and when it's important, and here, shadow me. And that's how, everything is set up, is you shadow until you feel like you're ready to do it. Then you're shadowed, and then you do it on your own, and then you get your badge. So, and that can be for it just might be that you shadow longer for some of these skills, that are kind of deeper knowledge skills. Anyhow, so I'm not sure, I might be getting off track. So I'm going to pass to Heather, and yeah, I'm a little confused where we are in the circle, but I'm passing to Heather.
Okay, I'm going to riff off what you've just been saying, because I've been thinking about we've covered the membership in Foodlands, but also parallel to that is our partners and our allies, and to extend the list of people doing similar things. Foodlands is involved with the National Farmers Foundation, which is a charity, working with them to figure out how we can put more land into trust. And I think that's like, we can learn from what we are doing in Pender, and and that can translate. It can be one example, and also, so I see there is a lot an overlap there. And I like the idea of some of these organizations are new to sociocracy, and how can we introduce that? And so there's also slow food that I've been involved with, and we're going this year to Terra Madre. It's the even year to Italy, and the theme of it this year is "We Are Nature." So just really doing a deep dive into how we are all connected in the same way that you were talking, or similar to you were talking about opening, Ben, in terms of land acknowledgement. So there just seems to be so much synergy there. And I'll just keep that in mind when I'm in Italy to see. We've asked to have some kind of presentation on land access and land trusting, and connected with land trusting in Quebec that has way more, it seems like, flexibility than we have in the rest of Canada in terms of looking at farmland as something that we want to protect in perpetuity.
Hmm.
So maybe that's too much information for now, but that's what's on my mind. And over to Janine.
Well, it's really funny that you're also there. I have a friend who will go to the Slow Food Festival too, and I actually thought about going there. So probably we'll meet in Italy. Yeah, it sounds like a really fitting to the ideas of the Lifeboat Academy. I agree. Over to Ronnie.
Oh, sometimes I love circle, and sometimes I'm like, I want to say the thing now. Ben, what you were talking about with the skill exchange and bringing different people together, it's making me think about time banking.
Yeah.
The time banking system becomes the way for people to plug in to a process. So it's the balance between relational and, you know, overly structured, but we need some structure so that these relationships can happen in a way that is respectful and reciprocal, but also has commitment and accountability. And I think the time banking structure setup is really important. And it's making me think about the governance guild, which has been defunct in the last over the last season, but that really seems like a conversation to happen in that guild. How can we set that up so that we have a way for people to not only be introduced, because we've done introductions and we've done meetings, and there's things that, oh, there's so much potential and then it doesn't go anywhere, but the time banking gives us a way for that to be really concrete. Hopefully that's the goal, right? So I'm not really sure how that fits in here, but I feel excited about time banking because that's also something that I could learn and bring to my local community, and really I'm starting to really feel like that is almost a necessary part of the lifeboat building formula. Um, yeah, so um, let me just put it here at the bottom. Over to you, Ben.
Yeah, so one of the things I agree, I think that there may be like the catalyzer that we've been looking for, I've been looking for maybe really around this time banking thing. A funny story, I set up a meeting with the guy who does time banking for last Friday, and he canceled on me without any explanation at all. And which I was kind of like, that's a little rude, but because it was a first meeting and it just was like, sorry, too busy, and then, you know, canceled it. But in just by happenstance, I stumbled on an article that was in the Resilience newsletter from Post Carbon Institute, and which was by this guy named Will Rudnick, who he does commitment pooling, which is it's time banking, but with a little bit of a twist, and it's based on, I think, local traditions in Kenya. He's African based, and but basically it's like time banking, but you don't start with time actually spent. You start with a promise of time. So everyone puts in, I am willing to spend X time doing Y if anybody needs it. And then people can kind of select from the pool, you know, take you up on your offer, and then you're paid for the time, and you can use that to pay other people's time, you know. And that's as far as I understand it right now, and I have an email into him to try to set up a personal meeting. Because I think, and it is also about, I think this is, we need an exchange also between the people with resources, because part of the commitment pooling model, I believe, is that there is also financial contribution which comes in the beginning, which makes it sort of worth the while of people to actually commit to it, so that they know that there's sort of a seed pool that starts it off. That's a financial seed pool that is backing, you know, the time commitments that people are putting in. And so there's sort of an idea of, you know, at any time you could cash out your time, which is exactly the way I was thinking about the time bank, you know, that there is a sort of a cash equivalent part to it. Anyhow, I think that it might make it much easier for people to offer up what they want to offer, right? You know, so you're offering up the mentorship, or that, you know, it's not just the skill, it's the skill sharing that, you know, people are signing up for. Anyhow, I think where this is all going is, if we had, this is just an idea that popped into my head, so I don't know if it's a good idea or anything, but it makes me feel like what we need is a pitch where we imagined a couple people from each of these groups in the same room. And we could start off by saying, if we were talking to this assembled group, how would we, you know, pitch the idea of the Lifeboat Academy, which is, it's really kind of the skill exchange, the mutual aid and skill exchange in the middle of people that are trying to do this resilience building. I don't want to get into the pitch, but it's sort of like the idea of, you know, what would be the short, overly simplified fairy tale version of what we're doing, which would allow us to say, that's why I need you to do this, and I need you to do this, and I need you to do that. And if we all work together, imagine what we could do. So over to Heather.
First, I have to unmute myself. I said I'm listening more than thinking about what I'm going to say, which is really good. So now I'm kind of caught off guard. Yeah, I mean, the idea of having a kind of resource, financial resource, is, I haven't been thinking in that way, and I think that that's really necessary for the people that we want to involve, who, in many cases, including myself and yourself, are kind of, we're under-financed personally.
Yeah.
We're, and don't need to be the executive director or have a full-time job, but really do need some kind of money to keep doing the work we do. So I am surrounded by people like that. Let's resource them enough so they can carry on the work. So this is an intriguing idea. And over to Janine.
Well, and I'm coming back to this sort of fairy tale story that you would tell in the pitch. I think this is exactly what we would need to communicate on Instagram to find this essence of the project to share, to make clear what we're looking for and what the project is about. So I feel like, yeah, we're on the same track to find what is missing on Instagram right now, what I feel. Yeah, over to Ronnie.
Yeah, I feel like we're sort of sifting through all these different parts and circling around what is at the core of it, which does seem to be mutual benefit and skill sharing in all ways, you know, with the land at the center, with the people working the land at the center. And the other thing I was thinking about when you were talking, Heather, is it's not just going to people with money and being like, can you write a check? But it's like asking all of us asking ourselves, what resources do we have to offer? Somebody might be, I can teach carpentry, and somebody else might be like, I have this inheritance and I would love to contribute that and receive training in sociocracy and learn carpentry or learn how to grow food. So it becomes a relational. I keep picturing a spider web in my head. It's this web, it's the web between us all that we can illuminate by presenting this framework of how people can get involved. So the time banking or whatever, or the commitment pooling, whatever you want to call it, becomes the web, the threads in between us through which we can transfer time and money and skills and emotional support and all of the things. And that brings me back to something that we've said over and over, which is this is a different way of being. It's a different way of being with people, and it's a different way of being on the earth. And I don't think that's an understatement. And I think that would be one really powerful way to talk about what we're doing is we are providing skills and training for how to be in reciprocity on the planet. And we offer that at all of these different levels, which are not, it's not really higher or lower. It's depending on where you are in your life and what you're interested in and what skill you have and what skill you don't yet have. But I think we're designing it in a way where we can meet you where you are. And mentors are the people who do that. They listen to you and say, here's the menu of options. What sounds interesting to you, and what are you willing to give also? And that's where the time banking comes in. It's like, what do you have that you can offer to the network? And we will identify the people who need that thing that you have, and vice versa. So I feel really excited about all of it, and I want to tell the whole world to do it this way. Even though we don't completely exactly know, like we know enough about what we're trying to do. I think it's really right now we're kind of putting all the pieces of the puzzle where they go and like shifting things around. But yeah, over to you, Ben.
Well, and I think I also am excited, and I feel like sort of there's two different tangents, and one I'm going to kind of park, which is this conversation is what we need. We need to figure out a way of bottling this conversation and sharing it with people. And one of the things I've thought about are, like 1 or 2 minute videos of like, Ronnie, what you just said. That's what's the lifeboat about? It's about a different way of being, like what you just said. But I think hearing different people say different things, but with the same level of commitment, you know what I mean? Like what I love about it is I was thinking about the blind ones and the elephant, and the Lifeboat Academy is the elephant, and we're all trying to describe it. So we get a better idea of it if we all get to describe it from where we're seeing it. And I think that that's the other part to this. And so the tangent that I think goes down is part of our work is to get more people to share in their own words what aspect of this they're excited about. And so how do we start to capture that and evolve that too? Because I was thinking, some of these are, if we were gonna like, what if we put out the question, what would your elevator pitch? Imagine you have a room of, people who might be interested in building a lifeboat with you. What's the elevator pitch or something like that, just as a way of getting different people to, just like in circle, one person does one, you're like, oh, I like that bit. And what if we da 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 da, and kind of being able to watch that evolve. So that's the one tangent. And the other part is that it's a trickster principle, or there's a kind of inversion thing, because I know exactly why you said it, and there's no judgment, but Ronnie's saying that, like, and everyone, this is the way you should do it. And I think that is the phrase that will shut everyone down. As soon as you say that should word in there, people are like, you're not the boss of me. And I think we want to be very, very firmly in, right? We are not the boss of you, right? This is completely consensual, non-hierarchical. And this is, I think, where it will get challenging, is this needs to be a privilege-free zone. And then you're going to be surprised how your privilege pops up. Like, this is actually like the different way of being, I think, is fundamentally about how do we exercise all of those vestiges of privilege, which we all know our privilege is invisible to us, until suddenly it's usually it comes up because we're feeling hugely defensive about something for some unknown reason. And, that's how you become aware of your privilege. Anyhow, I think that's so. In terms of how we pitch it, it's an invitation to do what you do, not to do anything different than what you do, and to follow whatever you're interested in. And I think that, kind of this ecumenical, like, a lifeboat needs everyone. It needs people with money, and it needs people who have nothing to give but time, and it needs people with high level skills, and it needs lots of people with very basic skills. And, so there's like there's room for everybody in the lifeboat, and how do we invite people in? And I think that's where it's, what do you have to share? And well, actually, I think it makes it okay to negotiate. Here's what I need, and here's what I can offer. And, for some people, what you need is access to land, or a living wage, or, accommodations. And for some people, what they need is a sense of connection, and anyhow, I think I'm excited, and I'm looking forward to how this all weaves itself together into, and I think maybe we could talk about the fairy tale, like, what's our fairy tale that we want to tell? I think that'd be a great organizing principle. Over to you, Heather.
Yeah. I had many thoughts as you were speaking and got excited about it, and now those thoughts have just and that to me is something I'm experiencing a lot these days, is holding on to something, and I think that what I'm bringing, and I'm doing almost a kind of a final round or whatever you call it, because it's after 9 and I have another meeting coming up. But what I really want to pass on is the circle. And what I'm really feeling in many of the arenas that I work in is that there's such resistance to that. And it's so powerful. And I'm thinking that on my own farm, when I try to do that, there's just like sabotaging everywhere. So some idea or intelligence around that I would find extremely useful. How you can, people need to experience it the way I've experienced it with this group, and I keep coming back to how can we do that elsewhere? Yeah. And I will pass it on to Janine.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, in the moment, I have nothing to add so far to Ronnie.
Yeah, I really like what you said, Ben, about it's an invitation to do what you already do. We're really not what we are asking people to change, and we're also not at the same time. Um, and this is what we have talked about, Heather, like how do we communicate about how powerful circle is without people being in a circle? And it's a really difficult thing to do. And I think it does, there's a reason people have resistance. There's privilege, there's white supremacy, there's wounding, there's inflexibility, there's all kinds of things. But something that whenever I talk about circle with people who are new to it, I talk about the indigenous roots of circle. And I talk about how peoples all over the world have used this as a way to communicate since the beginning of humanity, nearly the beginning of humanity. It's the oldest tool for communication that we have, most likely. That's my guess. And people use it because it works, and it gives everybody a voice and a space to express themselves. It creates an equitable space. And when I talk about those things, those things are really hard to argue against. Like there's no, like, at least when I hear that, like, what am I going to say? Oh, that sounds like a terrible idea. It's like, what is there to say against any of that? So, but still, and the other thing is, I went to a talk by an indigenous circle keeper a few weeks ago about her experience with circle, and circle coming from ceremony, which is done in circles by all of these different communities for thousands of years, is that they don't film circle, they don't film the ceremony, because it's a sacred space. So there is also, do we want to film a circle and put it on the internet? Watching a circle is not the same thing as experiencing it. You're not going to feel, you might feel some of the magic, but you're not going to feel the magic of you yourself participating in one. So, and I think maybe there's ways to invite people into circle that are really low stakes. So instead of, oh, there's a really big conflict, let's do circle, and nobody's done circle before. It's like, let's go, oh, it's fall equinox, let's have a gratitude sharing circle. oh, that was really nice. Could we do this in another way? Yes, we totally could. So, yeah, those are some things that I've been thinking about and trying as well. Um, Other than that, I'm aware of time, and I think there's a lot of really, really good stuff here, um, to bring to coordination circle, and to, yeah, I was going to say to coordinate with other guilds, but that's what coordination circle is for. I have some action steps around the navigation sessions, but yeah, I'm curious what other people feel about how to sort of, where do we go from here? Over to you, Ben.
So the conversation that you just started, which I am not going to take the bait, is I think the sum total of the Lifeboat Academy, which is, where, yes, there is huge resistance to this, and it's predictable and it's workable, and and I think that a lot of this goes also with, I want to work a line into a piece, which is, people keep agreeing with me when I say the problem is the problem is people aren't taking this seriously, but they think I'm talking about other people. And I think that all of this, it's like we all have resistance, we all get provoked, we all have these hooks. And part of the challenge of the thing with Circle is that that's where that stuff is going to come up. And it can come up, and it's safe to come up, and it's okay when it comes up. But people are resistant because you're going to call in this is not the purpose of Circle, but in a way it calls out your shit. And no one wants to get called out, even though they really don't understand that it's not calling out, it's actually just talking about what's always been there, but we've never been allowed to, talk about. Anyhow, I think that's why we need a Lifeboat Academy, because that is not going to be a question that is resolved, or, it's not going to be like, oh, the secret is that you just, you send the email on a Tuesday and then people will sign up. We're not going to have those kind of solutions. Anyhow, next steps, I agree. I think there's a lot of juicy stuff here for the next coordination circle. I think maybe what I'm hoping happens is between now and the coordination circle, this kind of starts to gel into, therefore, we'll have a couple posts here, this is what our plan looks like. And I think that that'll probably happen kind of naturally. So I don't know if there's any specific work to do, and, if there are any action items, but or that are coming to mind for me. But I think mostly it's kind of letting it perk and seeing what comes up later. So, and I feel like this is really a fantastic conversation. I am totally energized for the rest of the day. Over to you, Heather.
Yeah, I'm totally energized too, and I need to move off, and we're having an operations circle meeting in a few minutes, and I need to prepare for that, and I just will bring my excitement about this to that circle. And really wherever I can introduce, really like what you're saying, Ronnie, about beginning circles with something that everyone can participate in. One of the things I know for my own farm is that there are a number of people who almost never speak, and I'm really wanting the circle to include them. So the takeaway for me is that I just need to keep holding that. So when I am in a position of having some responsibility for convening, that I will bring the circle to the circle. And I may have to just leave. But yeah, thanks Heather for being involved in this. I'm congratulating myself for actually showing up.
Thank you so much. It was great to have you.
And you go ahead, Nadine, and I will just, if I slip away, it's because I need to go.
All right. Yeah, I just can agree. It was really fantastic to feel that circle energy again after leaving for so many weeks now from the Lifeboat Academy. But yeah, it is nice to join it again. I don't see any other action items so far.
There's one thing I thought of. Yes, thank you. There's one thing I thought of earlier, and just in terms of social media and stuff, that we have so many recordings of meetings and so many times where we've said, that was a really good soundbite, or that was a really cool conversation we just had. I do feel like there are things we could pull, there are videos we could pull snippets from and compile into a quick 30-second or 1-minute video with just some cool, interesting sound bites that get people thinking like, oh, they're having these really interesting conversations over Zoom. Like, what is this about? You know? So I just wanted to kind of put a plug that, because I think we don't have to reinvent the wheel. We have so much material we could be creative with. And then also, yeah, my thought for coordination circle was, I think doing this by audience was really smart, and going back over the audiences and saying, what do we want to offer this fall for each of these audiences? 1 or 2 things, get the list. Does this feel doable so we can scale it up or down depending on what we feel our capacity is? But yeah, I feel like it's coming together, and it's only August 7th. Like, I feel like we're on track and we're on time, and I think we're doing well. So yeah, I think this was awesome. Last thoughts for the good of the cause. Over to you, Ben.
The process works. Lean into the process. Yeah, and it was great to see you, Janine. And you left your earbuds.
Really?
There's a pair of iPod earbuds that we found that I can't think of who else they belong to. So
Okay, well, that's funny because I got another one that I forgot her name, but the other woofer found and thought it was mine, and so I thought they were mine too. So probably now you have like an exchange. We did like an exchange earbud thing.
all right,
Well,
we'll pass them on to
okay.
the next person.
Perfect.
That's it. I guess over to you, Janine.
Yeah, I have nothing to add. I think the thing with the videos would be a great idea. I think that could work.
Awesome. Well, thanks everyone for being here, and take care, and we'll see you soon. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.